district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text, that trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are 22 hours and 53 minutes away from the start of the NFL Draft. I am pumped. Let's get this thing going. It feels like I've been waiting for like longer than when I was 5 years old waiting for Christmas. I mean, it's just, it's got to get here. So I'm going to distract myself with a baseball game tomorrow, go see the Twins play, and then get home in time, get out in front of the couch, get that TV on, and be watching that NFL Draft. How about you, Theo? What's your plans for the draft?
Nothing too crazy. I'm gonna just sit back and watch, and then I think around 9 o'clock I'm going on the player profiler. They're doing like a podcast throughout the first round. I'm gonna hop on for like 15-20 minutes, and hopefully by then there'll be a Jets pick or two. I'm on Long Island, so there's a lot of hype as to what the Jets do, whether they sacrifice their entire future for Deebo Samuel or they use the picks. It'll be an interesting night. So I'm really excited, just like Dan and I'm sure Kevin, our guest tonight. It feels like we've been preparing for this draft for, half the year. And at this point, I'm just ready for it to get here. My favorite night is Friday night because we have so many fantasy-friendly draft picks. But this year, we're going to have so many wide receivers land in the first round that it's going to be exciting, just like last year. So it's like two awesome nights in a row. And then Saturday, I'll watch as much as I can. But, having the three kids, I'm not going to be glued to the couch for the entire day 3, but day 1 and day 2, I'm all over it. So I'm excited, and I'm really excited to have Kevin Scott on the show tonight. Kevin has written for 4 for 4. He's written for Sports Illustrated. He's a friend of mine in fantasy football. We actually are both in an FFPC league together. And I also know Kevin from competing in competitions like the Football Guys tournament. He's an avid player, a good writer, and he's actually doing a tremendous podcast series with Grinding the Data with his expert series. He's interviewed players such as Abib Agbatoba. He's interviewed analysts like Sigmund Bloom, Dwayne McFarland, Heath Cummings. I was even on with him. I had the opportunity to talk with him, and it was a really awesome show and a great chance to kind of pick each other's brains. So, Kevin, welcome to the GOAT District. How you doing tonight?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm good. I appreciate the chance to chat with you and be here with you.
Awesome. Tell us a little more about the expert series and how that came to be, and the process in doing so, and maybe some takeaways from it, and why should people listen to it?
Yeah, so Grinding the Data is a podcast I started about a year ago. It kind of just was about, I had been writing an article for a few years, just looking at fantasy football data from the week, kind of focus on snap counts and looking at, basically trying to find players before they pop, pick them up on the wire before anything really, everyone's on them basically, and they take half your money to get them in the FFPC. So just kind of really sifting through all of those, game logs and, snap counts and all that, and just writing an article about that. And so that was basically what I started. I was like, hey, I'm already doing this article. Let me just start this podcast. And it was really got a lot of good feedback. People saying it really helped them find some key players for their run last year. So that's really helpful. But then just coming into this off season, I just wanted to kind of zoom out and do a more of like an evergreen series about all these guys that I've met like you in this space and that I respect as players or analysts. I just wanted to pick their brain and say, how did you approach this past season? How are you thinking about next season? And just in general, what's your strategy in fantasy? How do you win, or how do you suggest others win? And it's just been really helpful for me to listen to people like you and Abib and Dwayne, people who are avid players and put serious money into this, and just hear, your process and hear how you go about winning, hear how you think about winning. And also so many great analysts have come on the show and just talked about from their perspective how they see the best players winning in fantasy, and most of them are players as well. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it. I have listened back to them myself just because I enjoy hearing these guys' thoughts, and you don't really hear it when you're interviewing them. So definitely you should check it out.
Yeah, no, we highly recommend it. It's a great series, and I think Kevin makes a great point. It's when you really sit back and during the season, I feel like we're constantly talking about the waiver wire. We're talking about lineup decisions. It becomes kind of almost repetitive week in, week out. Whereas you take a step back in the off season and you really get a chance to learn. I know, like on the GOAT District, Dan and I just sat down with like Scott Connor, talking Dynasty from like a larger perspective and those kind of things. It really makes you a sharper player when you take a step back and you're able to kind of look at it from a big picture. So we highly recommend you check out Kevin's podcast.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and it looks like we have a couple more people knocking on the door here, Theo. Let's see who's come to join us here.
Well, there we go. There's
JD and Andrew.
Oh, and Andrew.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up? What's up, Kevin?
JD happy NFL Draft Eve, Andrew. Nice to see you.
Happy to be here. Didn't think I was going to make it.
And it looks like Andrew's. Are you shooting from a different studio tonight, Andrew? This looks a little different than Studio A in the Schellenberg house.
Yeah,
this may be a hotel room. This might be a hotel room.
This is a hotel room, man. Shot.
You guys hear me?
In a hotel room, and this will be a hotel room.
So,
did you guys hear this yet tonight though? Has anyone heard this yet?
Not yet.
We still can't. I still
can't hear it.
You guys hear that?
No.
I'm still
Killed it. How are you, Kevin? Sorry, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
I had the final countdown, man. Like just blaring. You know that sixth, the start to the song. It's the countdown, man. You had to throw that in there. I'll fix the sound so we can throw it in there. How's everyone tonight? You guys pumped for this or what?
Yeah, we're totally fired up. Draft in less than 24 hours.
I was gonna say,
after it.
We're there. All right, nice. Yep. I'll let Dan. I'll let you take off where we interrupted.
All right, sounds good. So, Theo, why don't you fire away first, and I'll dive in after you.
So, Kevin, what's your overall thoughts of this offseason? Is this sort of player movement here to stay? And how does this sort of like big name players moving? It seemed like at a constant rate. How should that affect our approach to Dynasty moving forward?
Yeah, it's been crazy. I have no idea on the first question if it's here to stay. I feel like it's sort of like the NBA, like where there was like this shift a few years ago where all of a sudden players had all this control and they could go where they wanted to go, and it almost feels like that. I mean, especially the big name players are able to say like, "No, I'm not playing," and the teams are listening. So that's a new thing. I don't know if it's going to stick or if it's only these big name guys. But as far as how it affects our approach, I don't think it can affect that much. I think if there's anything we've learned is that we don't know what's going to happen, right? So it's really hard to plan, like if there's a guy that's a great, a guy like Tyreek, right? Like he's a young player, a couple years ago at least, with a great quarterback, probably the best offense in the league at that point. And if you're making plans in Dynasty, you're thinking this is one of the top assets. He's got a great situation and I want to buy. You're thinking about what, like a 5-6 year window, he's going to be gold. And then 2 years later, he's on the Dolphins with Tua. I just think you have to approach it, with humility, knowing like things are going to change. And maybe especially with the big name players or the guy you see as a top 10 asset, not selling the farm for him, knowing that there's more player movement than we thought. Like I think about a guy like Jamar Chase. Like we think of him right now, like he's always going to be with Burrow. Like, well, they're friends. He wouldn't leave. We'll just wait till Chase wants $100 million, right? And the Bengals are cash strapped at that point because they're a Super Bowl team every year. I could see him leaving just like Tyreek, and so you have to just kind of take, I think, valuation. You don't change it drastically. You just always know you might have to cash out at some point if there's a move like that.
And the question would be for all of you guys, do you think that this, in a way, maybe increases our winning windows with our dynasty teams, where instead of a player kind of just getting overtaken or necessarily his role changing on the same team, with the potential for movement, does it give a player like a rejuvenated success? Like we saw Stephon Diggs used in different ways in Minnesota, and then we see Buffalo going in and paying a great deal for him, and he steps into a incredibly high volume approach. Maybe Tyreek Hill is they justify the price they paid by increasing his targets and opportunities. Maybe start with Dan on that one.
Yeah, so on that, I think it's going to be a mixed bag. There's going to be some teams that do really well with, trying to maximize the talent of the person that they took. And then there's going to be other teams that, just they're not as good. Either the coaching staff isn't as good, or their front office is not in step with what the coaches want or need. So lots of things can happen on that. I think the main thing is that, we have to be aware that when players change teams, they can a lot of times end up struggling for a year or so before they really kind of start hitting their stride again. So you have to be careful about that. But the other thing is just, to, be aware of what players are more likely to end up moving. And really that's just by knowing what's going on with their salary situation. I mean, contracts are going to be more and more important in fantasy football. I mean, we're all going to be contract experts, I think, in a couple of years. And, you're just going to, before you start making deals for players in Dynasty, you're going to be wanting to check that contract. Okay, well, how long can I reasonably expect this player to be in this spot? Is Chase going to be there? Is he, locked in for another 3 years? Or, is there a potential exit after a year? So there's a lot of different ways that can go. What do you think about it, Andrew? Nope. Andrew is muted. He's having connection issues. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I think it's just an interesting, and we don't have a whole lot of data as to like these massive new contract moves following up a trade. So I think it'll be interesting to see how these guys pan out. Like, we'll be able to say, we saw DeAndre Hopkins, we saw Stephon Diggs. Now we'll have Devontae Adams, we'll have, Tyreek Hill, and then to a lesser extent, certain guys like Amari Cooper. So there's going to be more and more data for us to kind of react to. Kevin, what are some common mistakes that you see dynasty managers making at this time of the year? And we can so we're very close to the draft now. Maybe we can backtrack like over the last few weeks, kind of heading into the draft.
Yeah, I think it has to do with picks at this time of year. I think one thing is overvaluing, like picks that are less than premium is one thing I've seen. So I just saw a guy in one of my leagues traded Mike Evans for Devontae Parker in the 1.7. And I just thought that's not enough. I mean, you can get a great receiver at 1.7 theoretically. You can maybe a guy like, Olave pans out and you end up being happy with it. But you have something in the bag with Evans. You still got a window. And I feel like he really wanted to pick in that first round, right? Another thing people do is overvaluing the premium picks. So you ask yourself a year down the road, like, what's the likelihood that Breece Hall, I think he's great, but what's the likelihood he's going to be a top 10 overall player? Maybe it's like 30, 40, 50% even if you're on the high end. But if it's not that high, even the 1.1 shouldn't be treated as just like untouchable. If someone is throwing the sink at you, trying to get the 1.1, take it. I mean, like, I think that there's just a general overvaluation of all picks at this time of year because everyone's excited about the NFL draft. And then the other thing I thought of is like just moving on too quickly from players who didn't quite pan out in year one or even year two is a big mistake I see. Like, I'll never forget myself moving on from Devontae Adams after the first couple of years when he sucked. And like literally the next year he popped. And that's a drastic example, right? I mean, he was the ultimate terrible and then awesome. It took him a long time, but it happens a lot. You know, I think about these rookie guys from last year, like Kadarius Toney and Devonta Smith, some of these guys who were good. Elijah Moore, for some people, they were good, but they didn't like go off. You know, if you're trading those guys for a late first, I think you're moving on a little too quick because whoever you take late first, you're going to have to wait on also. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it certainly does. How about you, Dan? I know we've touched about this with a couple previous guests, but is there any other, I guess, last minute, dynasty mistakes you're seeing people making? And do you maybe agree with Kevin on the overvaluing of, non-premium first round picks?
Yeah, I think, Kevin kind of hit it tangentially for sure, but one of the big mistakes people make is just moving the wrong kinds of assets at the wrong time of year. This is not the time of year to try to move Mike Evans, because everybody's looking at all they're doing is looking at his age, and they're looking at Tom Brady and how long is Tom Brady going to be around, and you can't really count on him past this year, and they're not going to give you hardly anything for him, whereas when in the middle of the season, or 3 weeks into the season, and Mike Evans just had a 100-yard 2-touchdown game, and then you put him on the market. Now we're talking.
And you're pushing for the playoffs, and you want something to boost you, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, anytime during the season, it's going to be a much better time to move him. And the thing is, I mean, why are you even dealing Evans right now? For a pick, unless you're just absolutely sure you're going to be rebuilding, and I don't think most teams should probably be that sure that they're rebuilding. At this time of year, I think everybody should be thinking, there's, if things break right, I've got a shot at the playoffs, and I'm going to at least give myself that shot before I, throw in the towel. If I start out, 1-4 or 1-5 or something like that, okay, then maybe it's time to reassess. But but that's also when you're going to get the best prices for your premium assets. So that is the better time to try to go ahead and tank. I mean, if you're trying to, move those assets right now, it's just it's like you're behind the 8 ball. You should have done that last November instead of doing that now, or wait until the rest of the season. It's just wrong time of year to do it.
And if you're rebuilding, I mean, you should probably get like a couple of young assets, right? You don't want Devontae Parker if you're rebuilding.
Right,
so.
Right, exactly. That deal just makes sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
We talk about it often, Kevin, just to piggyback on what you're talking about. You need a pivot. Like Kevin, like you said, Parker is not a pivot. You need someone that you think can either he's going to give you similar production for that year that's coming up, and maybe he doesn't have that same kind of upside or longevity. And then you replace that value with a pick or another piece. But I think a mistake along the same lines is people water down their rosters too much. And maybe that is because they're overvaluing picks, or they're just trying to sell high on a piece that they think they can, move and then still compete. But I think that a mistake I see often is just rosters getting watered down, and then you go look at the roster and it's there's not much there. A lot of like wishful thinking and upside, but not necessarily guys that are going to give you something significant or of value for it point wise in the near future. And at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for, right? It is and then you talk about these vets. Maybe it's not time to sell them, but it's probably time to buy them. Right now they are at a discount, especially right before the draft. I mean, the shiny toys are there, the draft picks. So maybe you go get yourself some of these vets on the cheap, like the Hopkins we talked about and the Mike Evans.
Yeah, and just a kind of a follow up for all you guys is, we've seen for months now, we've seen people trying to accumulate as many 2023 first round picks as possible. That's sort of become like, it's gone from being like like the whisper, this is the best class, you're going to see in a while, to no, this is the thing you have to do. The 2023 one is the most important thing ever. And I think we've maybe reached a point where the 2023 random first round pick might be at an overrated level. There's a lot of top-notch talent in that class, but I know in a league I was able to trade and I'm certainly not the worst team in the league roster-wise. I was able to trade a random 2023 first for Deontay Johnson straight up pretty recently. I think that maybe that goes a little bit with what Kevin was saying. I mean, if we reached a point where the random 2023 one is slightly overrated at this point in Dynasty.
You asking me?
I'm asking all you guys. But yeah, Kevin, you start out. Yeah.
Is the 2023 one overrated? Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that pretty much always picks are overrated. But that's because if you could trade a future, and what you just did, actually, that's my league, and the guy offered it to me also. He was offering it to everyone, and you just got to it first. But it also depends on what you're doing. Like in that league, I was sort of a little bit on the fence when I saw it, only because I'm sort of rebuilding. So I wanted to keep that 23-1. But yeah, it's like, I think generally, if you can get a guy who's going to be a top 15 player at his position, or like Deontay Johnson, it's a no-brainer, because you could not only could you end up with the 11th pick, right? So it could be, or I'm sure you want to end up with the 12th pick. Let's go there. You could end up with the 12th pick, but also even if it's the second pick, there is no guarantee it's going to be anyone in Deontay Johnson's ballpark. And that's what people forget. Like, just because it's a premium pick, you might miss. I mean, think about N'Keal Harry a couple of years ago, right? He was the number one in a lot of leagues. So it's an easy thing to miss.
Yeah. I would say, it definitely can be overrated, but the one thing that future firsts always have is, they never get injured. They never take up a roster space. They don't go out and do donuts or anything like that. I mean, they're just it's just basically a great store of value. And if your roster is at the point where you can afford to have a store of value like that, and not have it, if you don't need to put it in play to be competitive, for the current year, then it can definitely make sense. But there's a lot of teams, where they might need to, maybe they're holding on to their own first, but they're not going to trade for somebody else's first because they'd have to give up an asset they need to win this year. So I think it can, it's very situation dependent, I guess I would say.
It's the Bitcoin of fantasy, right? The not like this upcoming year's first, but like the next year's first is basically the Bitcoin of dynasty fantasy football when you think about it, because like you said, Dan, it's not going to lose value even when people talk shit about that year at some point, because we all, just like the market, it goes up and down, which is based on people's perceptions and feeling towards that item, right? So that piece, right? So I think it's interesting. I don't know, Andrew, what do you think, man?
Here's what I'm thinking. One, I need to do a better job of selling veterans into January. I know that was talked about with Jordan McNamara a little bit, and I talked about the timing. You're totally right. Dead in the water doing it now. So I think that's one. The other thing I'm thinking about is like, what are the teams going to look like that I'm going to be interested in on like sponsor plug Dynasty Depot? Like the name, like the teams that I was searching for names, right? Like Control F Lamb, Control F Waddle. What do they all have in count? We think it'll be like the second or third year wide receiver break.
So you can hold on. You can actually search the teams through Dynasty Depot by player. I didn't know that.
Oh, I just whatever my Mac function or my Windows function.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
I did. I want to search for 500s and 750s. And the team, I was just doing Control F for certain players, and then I was seeing how many of other players I like on those teams before wanting to buy them. So I'm just trying to think. And again, maybe Dan kind of talking about our draft. What could I be interested in next year? Right, I absolutely want to compete this year, and I think ours is a special case, and not to dance around it, but like who are the players that may be like the Waddles or the Elijah Moores that are just skyrocketing up the dynasty value rankings? And again, maybe that's the ageist in me, but I'm thinking towards what am I going to want to be looking for? Who's that profile of a player that I should be targeting now? Because I don't want to have to pay any Dynasty Depot premiums to get those sexy looking teams. So that's kind of where I'm at, and maybe that kind of ties in with the thinking about when the right time to sell is, or the right kind of draft pick to make. But that's where I'm mentally is trying to roll this 1 year forward in my mind.
That's a good segue for Kevin. How concerned are you about age in Dynasty? We talk about the age apex. Do you find it meaningful? Is there buying opportunities that come from, these players of a certain age where, some Dynasty players might want to kind of get out from under a guy before he turns, a 27-year-old wide receiver or a 25, 26-year-old running back? How concerned are you about ages in Dynasty?
Yeah, that second question you asked, I think yes. I think there's definitely a buying opportunity there. You just have to be very selective and very careful, right? Because there's certain players that, in certain positions to a degree that you want to avoid running backs after a certain age or after a certain carry amount. I think those things are real. I think that you should watch them and be careful, unless you're, in one of these like little ranges where I'm going for it these next 2 years and I'm going to take on a Derrick Henry and I don't care about his carry count. I just need him to be great this 1 year. But yeah, generally for Dynasty, I think age is very meaningful overall. I generally try to churn my rosters. So when I look at them, if I see like, okay, I got these 3 guys who are trending up, I want to try to move a couple of them and get younger pieces or get premium picks. And, I'm always going to have a mix of young and old on my teams because you can't get all young. It's kind of impossible for most of the time unless it's a startup. But yeah, I think churning is helpful. I think moving on when they get to a certain age. But what I would say is that if you have a guy that has value, regardless of his age, like legit value, think of like a Travis Kelce. The dude's 31. He's still one of the top in the game. I see absolutely no point to trading him unless you're getting premium value still. And at that point, if I can't get, most of the time in my leagues, I'm seeing Kelce go for like 2 firsts if he gets moved. If I can't get a premium like that, I'm just going to keep him. I'll keep him all the way till he retires. And there's some situations where that's the best move because you just cannot get value once they hit a certain age.
You're just to quantify, you're talking 2 firsts and tight end premium.
Yeah. Most of my leagues in
FFPC, right?
like FFPC, yeah, tight end premium. I'm seeing that. But yeah, he's getting older. But there's some tight end. That's the tricky part with tight ends too. Sometimes they play till 36 or whatever, so
Often.
It's hard to know. Ones. Yeah. But yeah, generally, yes, I think it's important to watch, especially with the backs, and then secondarily with the receivers.
Dan?
Yeah. So I agree with that. I don't have a problem with having older players on my teams if I'm, contending.
Mm-hmm.
As Kevin said, it's difficult to have all younger guys, and it's really not ideal because you're generally going to have to pay quite a premium to get those guys. And a lot of times you're paying premiums for guys who haven't even really established themselves very well yet. They might have done it once, but doing it twice is a lot more rare than doing it once, and it's a much better marker of continued success if you can do it a couple times, especially at wide receiver. So you have to be watching for a lot of things, but I typically won't go out and buy an older player unless I am absolutely sure I'm gunning for a title. Like in season, I'm probably not going to buy DeAndre Hopkins in too many places until October, something like that. And if I need him, then I'm buying him. But if I don't need him, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna stick with the guys that I have, see if they can pull me through. And and even with guys like Hopkins or anybody else, once again, it kind of comes back to the contracts. Take a look at the contracts, see how much, see what's going to be the first year that they could theoretically be cut, because that's probably when they are going to get cut, is whatever year that, it's first possible dead money wise, because that's just the way the NFL seems to work. It's a rare player that, their contract allows them to be cut, because their dead cap is a lot less than what the team is paying them, that don't actually end up getting cut or end up getting traded or whatever. So, be watching those contracts too. They'll tell you a lot.
One move I like to make, just going back to the 2020 first or the 2023 first, is, especially as a contender, is go buy that vet right now. Use that 2020 first with the inflated value And then when you get later in the season and it is time to kind of, for those contending teams to really build up that depth that you're talking about, Kev, add those extra pieces, you can usually, if your team's not contending like you thought it would, you can usually move that piece if it is as productive as you bought it and it does pan out, but your team just didn't make it for whatever reason, injuries or something. It gives you the opportunity to resell that piece and buy back a 2023 first from those contending teams that are at the top, where they're not valuing those 23 firsts as much, because right now they're contending, they're going for a shift. So that's a little move that I like to try. It's not always going to work, but it does it is a good way to play the market and the fluctuation in the values.
I think it's interesting. Sometimes, when you're trying to get out from underneath a guy, you're not going to get value that's worth moving him. So for me, it's like, if you've held on to Keenan Allen for this long,
might as well ride it
out. Just ride it out till retirement at this point. I mean, you're going to get good production from him, and his trade value is lower because of his age. So you've pretty much missed the boat, in my opinion, to kind of cash out, unless you're truly awful everywhere else. So it's definitely an interesting balancing act.
Sorry, Theo, before you move on, is there a difference for you guys, or Theo, maybe you get like for running back and receiver, is there a difference there with the positions, or you treated the same? Like an Eckler and an Allen right now, are you treating those guys exactly the same, or does the position change that?
Well, not necessarily Eckler. I just think his game kind of translates well into, he's got, less career carries and he's pass catching guy, but
maybe a Henry and an Allen or something.
Oh yeah, no, I'm very fearful of running backs as they get older. I try my best to sell. Right? I've sold off on Kamara in a league this year. I've sold off on Derrick Henry. I made a big traded away Derrick Henry. I get very concerned about running backs, because I think that they lose value a lot quicker. Wide receivers, I think that oftentimes they get a little underrated as in their late 20s, just in terms of the trade value versus the production on the field doesn't correlate. But running backs, I'm definitely fearful, and I try to get out of guys maybe a little too early at times. But I'd rather be able to cash out than not be able to cash out.
Especially a receiver. Sorry, I was just going to say, especially a receiver that doesn't depend on his speed as much. Go ahead, Andrew.
No, one guy that's been tough this year, and Theo, I moved him one spot, is Saquon. I got price checked in a league that I was in with Bip on Saquon, because he was like, "Hey, saw you and Theo sell him," and I think it's just like he's been like a real test case for how I truly feel about my teams this year. Because if I feel like we can get anything positive, well, that was a triflex too, Theo, that we sold.
Trade?
Say it again.
The price was interesting on that one, Andrew. We got what was it, like the 107 and then an early second. Yeah. But we were in a weird spot for that team. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like he goes, "Hey, I saw you're selling them off." And I'm like, "Well, that team's in a weird spot." Whereas the best asset he would have had was the 103 pick in this year's class, not a triflex. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, for where I think that team was, I don't even think I would sell them for the 103. I think I'd rather go down. If Saquon goes down in flames, I'd rather just have him go down with me. You know what I mean? I think I'd rather take the total value loss, because I just don't think that for that particular team, the 103 would return what I need that team to do for this particular year. So I just think it's an interesting test case. One, I got price checked on him, but two, it was actually great. I'm glad he did that, because that made me think like, no, there's circumstances where I'm willing to ride this year with Saquon, and there's certainly circumstances where I'm willing to sell him off and kind of be that year and a half early on him on the sell.
And shout out to Biplap Mandel, who will be a guest of the GOAT District in the next few weeks, coming back on the GOAT District. Yeah,
you did big good.
Time. Nice.
You
nice.
Did
nice
good.
You're
professional.
For Kevin, how do you define an elite dynasty asset, and how do you distinguish them merely from a good dynasty asset? And then how do you value elite guys in trades? Are you more apt to take a big package, or are you trying to consolidate to try to add an elite player?
Oh, it just totally depends on the team on that last one. I mean, Is the team rebuilding? Is the team already deep? Is the team ready to compete this year? So it would totally depend on where it's at. I would say an elite dynasty asset for me is just like a team or a guy with a top 10 or top 12 or top 15, somewhere in there overall, somebody who's going to be drafted in that top group, whatever the position. For me, as far as trading for one of them, I generally don't, unless I feel an owner, like I've talked to him and we've discussed it, sort of like Andrew was saying, getting price checked. I have the feeling that he's undervaluing that asset in some way, and then I'll throw ideas at him to try to get that player. Even then, usually it doesn't work out. If he can sense that I'm really wanting this player, and most people love him, but there are times when somebody like I don't know, like last year with Justin Jefferson, when somebody was undervaluing them because he's on the Vikings, or something like that, where you're like, yeah, I can totally get this guy for underpriced. But generally, when you have a top dynasty asset, you want the moon, or you're not parting with them, right? And so I think trading for them is usually a fool's errand, unless like Dan was saying earlier, your roster is so loaded that you can afford to just give up 3 or 4 huge assets to get that, and then just to consolidate your starting lineup and make it that much more awesome. That's really the only time I would give up the farm to get a top asset. As far as trading them away, I am willing to do that if someone, like, again, is willing to throw the farm at me. It would take several top picks and plus talent. I had a deal in one of my leagues a couple of years ago where it was Saquon. Actually, I had Saquon on this team because I got the 1-1, or he actually traded me for the 1-1 because Saquon was the obvious 1-1 that year, and he gave me Deshaun Watson and George Kittle and like two top receivers. I can't remember who they were, and just completely changed my team. And I won back-to-back years after that. Somebody's going to throw stuff like that at you. Yeah, it's worth giving up that top asset, but it's, that's generally my take on it.
And Theo, he's talking about my the DPL. Is that the one you just joined? The one that I just three-peated in? That's like my roster there, where I can sell JT right now for and still not worry about it because I'm so.
I joined the league. It's Matt Hicks runs the league, and
shout out to Matt.
I can't say no to Matt Hicks. He's the man, great guest to the GOAT District, but when I got in that dispersal draft, that thing dried up pretty quickly. So
that's because I got everyone on my roster. So I three-peat.
JD orphaned, made a bunch of managers orphan their teams, and I got the scraps. So I will not be a threat to you in that league, JD. You can continue your glorious run. Kevin, what approach do you have to trades? We just kind of touched upon it a little bit. But what is your approach to trades in Dynasty? Do you try to be active? And what are your best ways of communicating with league mates? And do you ever mass offer, a particular player, like you want to get a second round pick for him? Do you offer it to, 11 other managers? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I used to be the most active trader in every league I was in. I was like the trade guy. I feel like things have shifted. I don't know if it's because players are getting more educated in general, like they're sharper across the board, and so there's more hesitation to trade. In certain leagues, it's still happening a lot, but it's probably also that I'm more busy than I used to be. I mean, I was a young guy with a lot of time on my hands, and now I've got a bunch of jobs and I'm busy. So trading kind of takes a back seat sometimes, but as far as like the mass offer thing, I'll do it occasionally. If I feel like I have a guy that I really, really want to move, is one way I've done it. Like I feel like his value is just higher in the community than I think it is. And I can get, let's say I feel like this guy can definitely fetch a first round pick. I'll sometimes go through and send it to most of the guys in the league, like this guy for a first, just like that guy did with Deontay Johnson to us. But rarely. I think the best way to communicate with owners is ahead of time. Like don't just send a random offer if you can avoid it. Try to email them and say, hey, I'm thinking about a trade. And it takes more time, and it takes a lot more effort to kind of chat people up. It's much easier to just send the trade, no comment, no nothing. And it can get accepted. You guys know that. You get the random, oh, wow, that got accepted. That's awesome. But most of the time it's either ignored or just instantly rejected. So it's a waste of time. So yeah, I think trading is probably one of the best ways to remake your roster and to build a monster. You know, if you have, especially if you have fish in your league and you can find them and you can offer them trades that you know are bad for them, but they think they're good. Always 2-for-1s, always throwing in picks that aren't premium, that they overvalue, those kinds of things. It's a great way to remake your roster. I just feel like it's getting tougher to do that, you know, to take advantage of people, especially in these high dollar leagues.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear Dan, JD, and Andrew's response on that. But I'll just say that I agree with you on the fact that I think there's less and less horrible players in the mix. And I think that's the case for redraft as well, where it really stands out this day and age where, maybe before you'd get a guy buy an orphan and, step in and make a bunch of mistakes. I don't see it nearly as much. And I certainly don't see it nearly as much in redraft, especially in, considerable stakes leagues. But yeah, I'm curious, communication and kind of some of the other questions we just touched upon for JD, Dan, and Andrew, if you could all share your thoughts on that.
Dan, you go first, brother.
All right. So a couple thoughts. I mean, first off, I don't really necessarily mass offer things that much. There's rare occasions where I do, but mostly I'm looking for particular themes that I'm trying to trade around. Like I'm trying to bolster my wide receiver squad. So I might look at everybody in the league and who has excess wide receivers and what are they looking for, and what can I offer them that might work. And I really try to. I do like trade calculators just because I like to run a trade through it. And if it's obviously way off, I'm not going to offer that trade. I try not to offer trades that are just like, really egregious by, via a trade calculator or whatever, because it's just not worth it, because you piss people off, they're not going to be good trading partners, and if you just keep sending bad offers, nobody ever wants to counter them. They're just going to reject them and move on with their life. So I'm definitely somebody who tries to, if you're getting an offer from me, I think it's a good one. And I think it's got something for you in it as well as something for me in it. Because I know, it's not just about me. I've got to satisfy a need on the other side, or, there's no trade that's ever going to happen. So, those are the main things that I try to do. And, a lot of times you feel like you're trading with a brick wall because, so many of them, as Kevin said, just get, thrown out. They either get ignored or they just get, declined with no information coming with them or anything like that. But every now and then you do get the, you'll get some information back in the reject, or you get a counter offer or whatever, and you can kind of find out, oh, that's what they're thinking. Okay, well, and then maybe you can figure something else out. So that's my thoughts. JD?
Yeah, I'm guilty, man. I'm the poker player guy, right? The more information you give, the more advantage you give your opponent. So I like to just send out offers in the league, and then kind of I hope, because when I get an offer, I try to always find a counter, at least a counter, something to try to get something going. So I hope that my league mates will do the same. Like Kev, I don't always want to talk to my league mates for that reason. But I keep it simple. Like we talked about, Kev, you say how, we have wiser league mates now, right? It's harder to get an edge over these guys. So I keep it simple. The B's are going one way, I go the other way. People are down on one guy, like people are down on Josh Jacobs right now. I'll probably go buy Josh Jacobs. People are high on one guy. I'll go probably sell him and buy someone there. I keep stuff really simple. Contenders and rebuilds, like who are obvious rebuilds, who are obvious contenders. That's how I play it. If I want to sell like a certain receiver, I'm going to go look at who has the quarterback that goes with that receiver. That's probably the first guy I'm going to send an offer to, just because I think that's, a little extra incentive for that owner to make a deal. Maybe he's got Brady and I'm sending him, Godwin or Evans or something like that. So those are ways that I kind of keep it simple. Andrew, what are your tactics when it comes to trading?
I'm predictable in terms of the players that I like. I'm all
No.
over the place in what I'm doing trade wise. Like Kevin, I'll use you as an example because I'm pretty sure didn't we get a trade done last year?
Mm-hmm.
Where first of all, that trade's gone back and forth. I think you're the ultimate winner because I think I sent you McCaffrey and Cup, and that was a hell of a deal.
I think you got T. Higgins, right?
Yeah, T. Higgins and maybe a high draft pick or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not nearly enough for McCaffrey and Cup. That's ridiculous.
Doesn't matter. You got T. Higgins. That's all he cares.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted.
I was going to say that's just right on point for Andrew. I mean, that sounds like the right deal.
And I think the thing is like I use this example because I think I even wrote to you, Kevin. Hey, I just started clicking buttons and I didn't stop clicking buttons. It was like my message to you, right? And I'm the opposite of JD. Is just like I'll give away whatever information you want from me, I'll give it to you, right? So I was just like, hey, I don't think that this is fair. I'm just clicked buttons. I couldn't stop myself on either side. Send it back a counter. I think we ended up getting. Obviously, we got it done. And then so that's how I trade with people. I just start smashing.
Andrew's the guy that you're walking through that house. You know, you're with your real estate agent. You're like, I fucking love this house. This house is amazing. You do like the opposite of what you're supposed to do. You know, like keep it cool. Like, no, you don't want to show. You like, no. Andrew's fucking taking his shirt off. He's like, I love it.
But then on the other side, right? If you give me an offer, it's like, well, I didn't want to fucking move this player. Hey, you send me your trade calculator. I understand it's fair. Maybe I needed wide receiver help. You're offering me wide receiver. It's like, okay, well, I didn't want to move the running back. Convince me to move the running back. I didn't want to move him. Like, right. I don't want to fair Dan knows this because I'm probably annoying him on our startup. But it's like people love to be loved. I love my players. I didn't want to part with them. Come and bring me a good offer, and then maybe you convince me. But otherwise, I don't know. So anyways, I'm all over the place. Also, I try out my comedy bits with my rejects. So like I said, with the giving away too much information, I try to just find even if it's fair, just like a snarky or a shithead thing to send back.
Andrew is coming across as a very nice guy right now, but occasionally Andrew will send a reject with a pretty nasty comment as well. We've occasionally gotten. Once in a while, Andrew will get very angry about a trade offer and know about it. So be careful sending Andrew trade offers for the guys he has to subscribe.
So let's be trying on my comedy bit. So it's all part of an act. But that's not true. Theo gets the unfiltered in the DMs about how pissed off I am, and then I'll try to craft in something witty in the response.
100%. It's like a Chris Rock, Will Smith type reaction once in a while. From Andrew. Yeah, face smush for sure.
Face smush central.
I was going to say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kevin. Oh no, I was going to say one way I like to communicate on FFPC trades. I feel like is not everybody does it, but instead of emailing you, I'll send you an offer for a 7th round pick with my notes in it because I feel like some people don't always open emails. But if you see a trade offer, most people that are deep in the dynasty game will, go look at that thing in like 30 seconds. So that's kind of like my communication.
That's a vet FFPC move right there, Theo.
100%. You're going to open that up. You're going to open up that and read what it has to say.
Make sure you don't miss the notes, guys. If you see that 7th for a 7th or 6th for a 6th, because there's usually a note, a long paragraph attached as to why, you need to move your player and buy the other guy's player.
And then I like generally, I feel like it's easy to get 2nd and 3rd round picks, especially 3rd round picks. So once in a while, if somebody wants to make a trade with me, I'll try to get, an extra 2nd or 3rd thrown in. A lot of people are very quick to get the trade done, but I think that, and Dan's been really strong about talking about this, is just accumulating these picks, and you're kind of able to add them in a trade offer where maybe the thing that pushes you over the top to saying yes is I'm able to include 2 future 3rds on top of our trade offer, and that gets it done. And I'm able to do those things by kind of accumulating the less sexy picks. So it's a great mental process to kind of hear you guys all kind of share your thoughts on this and the different approaches to it. Kevin, what were you going to say before?
I was just going to say, like Dan said, for me, I think he's right on the money as far as what I try to do too, as far as looking at the rosters. I think that's absolutely key. To throw out offers that are random to other owners makes no sense. Look at their roster first, look at what they need, And then you can say, and a lot of people get ticked at me for putting a note. I'm not like a mansplaining kind of guy. Like, here's why you should take this offer. But I'll say, like, this is what I was thinking. Like, looks like you could use a tight end, and I need a receiver. I thought we could help each other. Let me know, And it's like, I feel like that if it's forethought like that, it really makes a big difference.
And again, keeping it simple, because like if the guy has 3 running backs and it's start 2 running backs, don't go ask him to buy his stud running back. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
I think, JD, every time the theme song plays, I think I'm committing the cardinal sin of the GOAT district. I'm just overcomplicating things. I'm just like not responding to trade offers if I'm so angry. So I'm all over the place. You don't want to trade with me. I'm a disaster.
Guys,
and also
there is a time and a place to make the offer a little bit more complex, just to kind of, sometimes you gotta
bamboozle.
You don't want to leave what you're trying to do sitting right on top, like a cherry. You just, you want that somewhere in one of the middle layers of the cake. And
it comes back to walking into the house and being, man, I love this house. Like you don't want them to know who your main target is, and you're making that move.
And I think that you can also poison pill your way into getting that secondary guy that you really, really want in a trade. Like Dan's trade recently, and maybe Dan could talk about it. You made a larger move, but then you had a wide receiver swap on top of it, your Fields Barkley move.
Oh, yeah. So I got this is in a super flex, and I needed another running back pretty bad. I felt like I was a running back away from being a really solid contender, and I had the extra quarterback in Fields. So I ended up with, getting on a Fields Barkley type trade. Then on top, my trade partner had Aaron Rodgers. I had Lazard. I had Kirk Cousins. He had Adam Thielen. So I'm like, let's throw these guys in too, and then it just kind of it made the trade a little bit better for both sides, because each of us got that stack. It was kind of like I felt like I got the better player in Thielen than Lazard. I might be wrong about that, but the fact that I was giving him the stack made that go down a lot easier.
That's a key move, man. Looking for the stack. You want to move Diggs, go find the Allen owner.
Right.
That should be the first guy you go make an offer to, because he's going to value the most.
If you want to move Diggs, you should offer him to me, because I'm going to pay you as much as I can to get Diggs at this point right now. So we're on NFL.
Hold up, Theo. We went over 50 minutes. We didn't give any love. We didn't give any love to our friends, man, at myffpc.com. Guys, it's April. We're not even in May yet. We haven't even hit the NFL draft. You guys are for sure as degenerate as us. You love yourself some fantasy, best ball, redraft, dyno, big tourneys, small tourneys, whatever it is you like to play. $5, $5,000. Check out myffpc.com. We talk about it here often for a reason. You got the Players Championship right now, the football guys, $500,000 large. And they've got the early bird promo where you get a $35 credit if you buy 3 teams right now. $200,000 grand prize for the new best ball tournament, guys. We had the big one, the 125 buy-in early for $25K. This one's for $200, guys. Be a bit bigger, a lot more people in it. Make sure you get in early and you get your spots. And of course, the dynasties and the best balls are always flying. If you're not already on the site, just tag one of us at Goat District or anyone you see on this screen, and we'll hook you guys up with a sign-up bonus for show. Go ahead, Theo.
So we're almost 55 minutes in. We're on the eve of the NFL draft. Kevin's been really hitting it hard, analyzing these prospects, watching film. Final countdown time.
You guys hear that now or what?
You got it, JD. You got it that time. That was on point.
Had to get it.
So we want to pick Kevin's brain. We've had, for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking to some really great people about their rookie takes. Now we're finally at NFL Eve. I first want to start out with talking about a couple of these veteran players. Last year we had, this was 25 picks into the draft. It was a rough time for James Robinson dynasty managers when they took Travis Etienne. It was a gut punch. Who are some of the players that we should be most worried about over the next few days? Is there a player that could become the next James Robinson? And maybe some veterans that you're just really worried about losing a lot of dynasty value?
That's interesting. You put this question in the notes, and when you said who could be the next James Robinson, I translated that as who's going to be the next undrafted guy that pops. So
I want to hear that one too. That's definitely the money one. That's better than
I mean, so if I answered that question first, I mean, I was going to say if only we knew, right? It's so hard to guess that guy, but one guy I thought of was Pierre Strong. He's a guy I could see not getting drafted or going super late, super fast, very good even between the tackles as a fast guy. If he lands in the right spot, could do some serious damage. Another guy I thought of that could be like a James Robinson, because I think he will be undrafted, is Sincere McCormick. I think he's a small school guy. I can't remember. Anybody know UT, University of Texas? I think UT San Antonio, or I can't remember. Anyway, just a really small school, but when you watch his tape, this guy's like a little bowling ball, and he actually tested really well for his, like, he looks real stocky, but he's pretty quick and a really good runner, good vision, good tackle breaker. So I could see him being like a Robinson. But as far as who do we have to worry about, I haven't thought about that yet. I mean, I think wherever Breece Hall goes, obviously we worry about that starter. I don't really worry about receivers very much, because I think there's so many options, and teams like having multiple guys. I'd be interested to see what the other guys think. Who's in danger of losing their job?
Maybe start out with Dan. Which guys are you most worried about, Dan? Oh, Dan's on mute. Dan, you're on mute. There you go.
Got it. So there's been a lot of smoke. People are worried about Fournette. They're worried about Gibson. Because these teams have had running back visits and all of that. I think one of the ones I'm most worried about is probably Gabe Davis, because I think if the Bills do spend a draft capital on a wide receiver, it just kind of pushes him back to a marginalized role yet again. It's kind of funny, a guy who could have 4 touchdowns in a playoff game, and you talk about, could this guy be marginalized, and it kind of seems like he could, because he had he finished off the 2020 season really well. And then, in 2021, he went right back to being kind of a nobody for most of the season. So when you see things like that, those are the kind of guys that I worry about a little bit more. I do worry about, like, the Chargers seem to be looking at wide receiver. That could mean bad things for either Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. If the Vikings, who have been, they've at least been nosing around wide receiver, that could be bad things for Adam Thielen. So there are always a lot of potential potholes, and you just have to wait until the draft to see who they're going to be.
I was going to say one guy you just made me think of that I am actually very worried about because of my own dynasty teams is Michael Carter. He would be very much like a James Robinson for me. Like, I'm super excited about him, and if they take Breece, it's going to be the end for him.
Who invited Kevin, man? He just steps in front of me, takes my guy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought he was an air out of the room.
I was going to say.
I was purposely leaving him for you, JD.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, it's all good. No, I'm joking, man. I was going to say, like with Theo, right? Like the New York Jets, just you got Elijah Moore and Carter just because of those early picks. And you see this team wants to maybe add more weapons for Wilson. So for sure, you're going to be afraid. But to me, there's also an opportunity because, as I said, in previous shows, like I don't see them bringing in a guy to step ahead of Carter. At worst, it's going to be someone, in my opinion, that's going to complement what he does, because what he did last year was not insignificant. I mean, he looked good in that offense as a rookie, and I think they're just going to look to complement that if they do make a bigger investment at that position, which is questionable in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it, Andrew.
A weird angle to this. This is not as high risk, but I'm worried about all those like favorite late round targets of the running backs of mine, and I'm going to give out my favorites, like I guess Chris Evans, really maybe Khalil Herbert, the Kenny Gainwells. Like I kind of don't even want those teams to do much because the guys I like don't already have draft capital to begin with.
Mhm.
And I already like them as potential, call it sleepers, that I think that will keep their value relatively depressed for at least the beginning of the offseason. So I'd almost prefer that some of these favorite running backs go to the obvious candidates, the Falcons, the Chiefs, maybe the Dolphins, the Cardinals, the whoever, to keep my kind of favorite guys off the board and kind of in that sleeperish range for a little bit. Now, I know that's a little bit less of stakes than maybe a Lenny or a Devin Singletary. Or
That's
whoever.
such a cop out, Andrew. You're going with Khalil Herbert.
Well, the obvious names. Dan took a million names. I'm just saying.
I was gonna say, dude, if you're losing sleep over Chris,
You're not
Evans,
losing
then
sleep.
you're doing this
No one's
wrong,
losing
brother.
sleep over Chris Evans. And
I'm trying to give a different angle. Dan said all the names.
no, we appreciate the interesting Chris Evans angle. I love it. Give us a real name. Let's say a top 6, a top 8 redraft guy that you're worried about.
Andrew, say Javonte Williams.
Okay, Javonte Williams. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to do much now. They signed Melvin Gordon. I didn't think that was a good angle either. I don't know. I think that there's these guys on the margins that we like now. Because use Packers as an example. They're going to draft people, and I don't think they're going to marginalize fucking Alan Lazard. Like I think it's our obvious names. The running back targets. So let me restate my position. Right, the running back targets that we love now, the Penny, the Singletary, the Lennys, the Michael Carters, like those guys are, which we mentioned, that those guys are the ones that we're worried about. I think that's what we have to like. Hey, are these the guys going to fall in that running back dead zone? I know we're talking dynasty versus redraft, but I think that those are the ones that are going to take the biggest hit there.
I think those are some great names. I'm actually working on an article about this, so I put some thought into it today. Penny's a really good name because Penny right now is kind of like that. He's kind of at his max value where people have added him. Chris Carson is completely banged up, but the Seahawks have back-to-back picks towards the top of the second round. He's got to avoid, basically 2 draft bullets right there. I thought an interesting one was Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I don't think there's any chance he's going to lose complete value, but I think that he's been going pretty high in startups where the Lions have that late first-round pick. I think that there's a chance they could kind of maneuver around, try to add like a Treylon Burks. I know Burks visited with them where, they're bringing in a guy to kind of be an alpha. And Darnell Mooney, who I've tried to, and I know, Kevin, you're a big fan of Darnell Mooney, but I've tried to add some Darnell Mooney shares. The Bears have 2 second-round picks that apparently they're trying to maneuver around, maybe add one of those Ohio State wide receivers, to reconnect them with Fields. And I think it's interesting because Mooney's had the 140 targets last year where he could take a step forward where maybe the Bears with the new GM don't necessarily think so. So it's a hold your breath type night. The worst would be if Washington drafts Walker or Breece Hall, who both visited, because that would not only, crush Antonio Gibson, but it would also crush Walker or Breece Hall. So I don't know. It's a hold your breath type night for a lot of dynasty players.
What do you think about that trade, guys? It was Gibson for Elijah Moore. Somebody sent tonight, and they were kind of relieved that they got to move Gibson for Elijah Moore.
Elijah Moore's side.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
I don't hate it. I mean, I personally think Gibson's probably going to come out of this all right, but I could be wrong. So
it's interesting. Theo, you said that if Washington drafted Breece Hall or Walker, that it would ruin their value. And I kind of think if they draft Breece Hall, what they're telling us is that they don't think
it would depress. I'll reword it.
Depress,
Their value.
No, and I agree with that.
Right.
It's gonna
a
little
it would
bit.
definitely be more of an indictment on Gibson than it would be the new fresh back. But yeah, it would be kind of like especially for redraft. Like in Dynasty, I wouldn't worry about Breece Hall like at all. I think he's going to be a stud, even if he's in a weird split his first year. I think he'll be worth more in startups a year from now than he would be this year, maybe if he was in a split. But yeah, you go ahead with your point. But I
hear you. I hear you. It just makes me wonder if they did that, and it's interesting. I hadn't even heard that they had those guys in. It just makes me think they just think he's maybe a receiver, and he's not like, I think he's a good runner, but I think maybe they don't see that he's as good between the tackles as they want, or he's not their style or whatever. I'm just saying, if Breece Hall got drafted to the Commanders, I would be all over it. I wouldn't worry at all about Gibson at that point. I think they're going to put him, use him as a third down back. I don't know what they do with McKissick. That would be it would be terrible. You're right, though. It would be so confusing for redraft.
And shout out to a B-Bag Batoba in the chat. Welcome to the GOAT District. I'm glad you're in here.
The GOAT in the startup draft district.
He's in a startup draft with Andrew, Dan, and I. So it's nice seeing Abib in here.
JD, do you have the How Rich? Sorry, this is the How Rich segment of the night. Do you have the How Rich drop? I want to go back to the 1912 shit back up here. The LaQuinta end. I just want to tell you that you tell me when you want me to gift you gold status to Marriott, because I'm already at 76 Marriott nights for this year, and I've already got my membership rewards that I can dole out gold status to a friend. So don't disperse me in my Marriotts, please.
And a shout out to the fine people at La Quinta Inn. If you want to
no, they're not a sponsor. They're not. No, like La Quinta Inn's done nothing for me. If you're staying at La Quinta Inn, you're an idiot. Stay at a fucking Marriott like an adult.
Oh, Andrew's so butthurt right now.
We love it.
Quinta Inn. Fuck off.
Either that,
Kevin,
or it's just the comedy act.
Hey, JD, you weren't working on La Quinta Inn as a sponsor, were you?
Okay.
We had him until now, Andrew.
Not anymore.
They were watching tonight.
Was this the test show?
This was a sample, man. They were tuning
in. Good grief, man!
Like when the scout shows up to your game and you just drop
cut this part. Cut this part from the pod.
We're gonna edit it out.
All right,
we've been contractually obligated to ask each and every dynasty guest coming on. Kevin, if you're on the clock coming up in a rookie draft, what is your cutoff for trading for a random 2023 first? The 106, the 107, the 108. Where would you be at with that? Do you have is there a number for every league, or would it be kind of league specific for you?
Yeah, it would completely depend on what I'm doing with that league. So when I think about being on the clock with a pick, I think it's always natural, and certainly the case for me, to value that pick more highly than any pick in the future. And I think that's why a lot of times you can trade a current second for a future first, because those current picks are always more valuable, right? I think, if I was in a league that I was sort of either rebuilding or on the fence about whether I can compete, it would be around that. Let's see, you got the 6 receivers, 6 or 7. Yeah, I think probably 1.8. I would probably move it. I think the top 7 are really solid. I like those 6 receivers and Breece and maybe even Walker. So I might keep the 8, maybe trade the 9 somewhere in there. But if I'm in a league where I'm rebuilding, or if I'm competing that year, I'm just going to take it. I'm not going to trade it for future. Just take the guy, because there's that. Even if you're 1.9, there's a player like a Sky Moore that you can use this year potentially, and still might provide you really good value long term.
How about you guys? Has anything changed, JD, Dan, Andrew, with you're on NFL Draft Eve? What is your cutoff at this point? Is there a point in the first round of rookie drafts that you think you would pivot, or is it kind of still up in the air based on the draft draft landing spots?
I'm playing chicken on the clock. I want to see how long before somebody panics to get their guy, and how much I can get it for now. And again, maybe I have a league mate trying to do the same thing, and they're willing to do a little bit less and get a deal done. But I'm willing to play chicken a little bit on the clock, especially if I have one of those Mid-round picks and see just how much I can get for it. Maybe first round plus a third round next year or something like that. I don't know, because I think that there may be opportunities once people like the landing spots and like their guy and see a perceived value falling. So I really think that this year, when you get on the clock around that 105, 106, 107, I think you're going to like maybe some of the deals that you can squeeze out of some of your other league mates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really have necessarily a set point. I would certainly start considering at the 1.7, depending on how the draft shakes out over the next couple of days here. That could move. And also it kind of depends on how many picks do I have in this draft? What are my team needs this year? If I feel pretty good about my team and I've got a decent number of picks, I'm more likely to go ahead and make that move for the 23 first right now. Though, as Andrew said, a lot of times you can get that best deal when you're on the clock. So, if you're not finding the deal you like right now, just wait.
Yeah, I'm my approach with FFPC is pretty simple. I mean, I'm looking for running back in rookie drafts. I treat receivers like tight ends in FFPC because your roster is so shallow. I don't have time to wait for once you prove yourself, then I'll go pay it. I rather pay a bit more or whether even a lot more to go get you, when you've proven yourself. But I'm going for running back. I like the top 2 running backs this year. Otherwise, maybe I like the next 3 receivers if I'm more in a reno mode, and not necessarily going for it. I want to add like a last depth piece to my receiving core. But FFPC, man, I treat receivers very similar to the tight end position just because of how shallow the roster is. MFL or those deeper dynasty leagues, obviously I'm probably 106, 107, like you guys said, is probably where I'm starting to consider moving out and not necessarily adding those top 5 pieces to my roster. But it really depends on roster size for me and needs.
Kevin, we've seen the last 2 rookie classes make a huge impact both in Dynasty and in redraft. How would you compare this class overall as a whole to the last 2 years?
I think it's certainly weaker than the last 2 years. I don't think that's all this talk you hear about it being a weaker class. There's definite reasons for that, and to me, the biggest glaring position is running back. I mean, people talk about how weak the quarterbacks are, but I think quarterbacks are always hard to judge until we see them in an NFL offense. Some of these guys could be great down the road, and you could see that with the backs. I just think as far as the quality of the prospects that we're seeing this year compared to the last couple of years is much lower. Even the receivers, there's a bunch of receivers that I like. But there's nobody in this class, in my opinion, who's even in the ballpark with the people we've seen in the last couple seasons. Nobody's even close to a Justin Jefferson. I mean, if he's an A, there's like a B- would be like Garrett Wilson, Drake London, those guys, right? I just think they're not even close. So I think it's like there's a little bit of depth, but there's not the top end talent. I mean, at running back, Breece Hall, and then it just drops off. I mean, Kenneth Walker's good. He's just not as good, right? He's good, not great. I think really the biggest area, like we were talking about earlier before the show, tight end would be one that I think we might look back at and say, this was a really good class. There could be 4 or 5 tight ends that we say, these guys are all good and productive tight ends came from this class, even top, 15
Did you
guys.
talk about your couple favorites already, or?
Just before the show, we were talking. I mean, Dulcich is my favorite guy. I think he's got just excellent run after the catch ability, really good hands, good route running, eats up tons of yardage quickly. It's sort of like when I watch him run, I can't really just compare him to anybody. Sometimes he looks like a Gronk with how he eats up yardage. Sometimes he looks like a Gesicki with the way he runs. He's like really like agile like that. But yeah, I think he's just a really athletic guy. Cade Otton, however you say that. I really like him. Another really athletic guy who's going to be undervalued because I don't know, maybe he's boring or whatever, but you watch the tape, it's like, wow, this guy is really good. He's really talented. And then obviously the the top guys everyone else talks about. So I think it's gonna be a good class.
There you go. Dulcich, you're looking for him to land in the second round, you think, Kevin? Or you think he's going to be more of a third round type guy if you had to put some thought into that?
I would guess second, but I could see him. It's going to take a team loving him, right? So that's the thing with tight ends. It's so much in the eye of the beholder, and like we were talking before, what a team needs. If they want a guy who's an excellent two-way tight end who can block, be out there every single down. If they want like a Kyle Rudolph guy, they'll take one of those guys, right? And I don't even know who those are. So I'm only looking at the guys I think are going to catch passes, who are going to be good for fantasy. So yeah, all those guys that I have in my top. The other ones are Charlie Kolar, another guy that when I watch him, he reminds me of Hunter Henry. Just great route runner, good adequate speed, good change of direction. He's just a little skinny like Hunter Henry. Even Jeremy Ruckert, when you watch him, Ohio State guy, just really he runs routes split out wide a lot, like a pro style offense. He reminds me of Logan Thomas a little bit. So it's hard to know like which of these guys is going to actually pop. It depends on where they land. I could see all of them going in the top 3 or 4 rounds. My top 5 or 6 guys. It just is going to take a team that sees it and wants them.
Andrew's betting corner, where he makes vaunted guests feel uncomfortable on the spot. First round tight ends over half plus 450 odds. Do you think that Trey McBride or Dulcich slips into that first round, or is you never make a minus 700 bet, but do you think that that's a stay away or a bet on the over one half tight end?
Oh yeah, I would say they probably won't. I don't think any tight ends go in the first round.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, McBride has a chance.
Never make a minus 700 bet, no matter how sure of a thing that you think it is.
I've never thought. I think that there's nobody in this draft like a Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, where everyone's kind of drooling, at their physical profile. But there are lots of guys that I think are going to be like that. Oh wow, that guy's good, because they just know how to play football, and they got enough physical talent to be really good in the league.
Andrew, I'll take that plus 450 for $50.
Me too.
No,
you could take that from Dan and I. You offered it.
No, I'm not the house here. No, thanks. I would never lay the minus 700, but I don't mind a little sprinkle on the over as well. So I don't want to.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form convinced that I'm right. But it's like one of those things where it's like, hey, if you can turn your $50 into $225 or whatever.
Yeah,
we almost always see
18%.
We almost always see a running back or a tight end go in the first round. It's rare that not one of those guys is selected. So I think that there's a shot, and there's the reports on Tampa Bay taking Trey McBride. It seems like a nice move for them with the older tight ends. They lost O.J. Howard. McBride's right there on the board. I think that might be the chance to win that bet if anybody's thinking about betting it. And then I talked about this. So go ahead.
I was going to interrupt, and I will conclude Andrew's betting corner. But it's also over 1/2 running back plus 149, which I did take the over on. Not saying it'll be a situation where it's like the 32nd pick like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I can see somebody in the back half of that, or one of the last few picks of that first round, maybe taking either Brees or Kenneth Walker. So I like over 1/2 running backs, but you're going to sweat it out until pick 29, 30, 31, 32.
I would love Brees Hall to the Bills. We would talk about it all day on Friday. Fantasy football would be so excited about Josh Allen with Brees Hall. I think it would be a great thing.
Yeah.
And I'm most excited about Jeremy Ruckert, just because he's from Long Island, where I live, and there's rarely guys getting drafted in the NFL from Long Island, and Ruckert will surely be drafted. Do you have any thoughts on Ruckert, Kevin? I know the Dynasty Warzone guys are big fans of his.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, when I watched him, I was impressed. Like I said, he's got a thick frame. He's a pretty good route runner, good hands. I honestly don't know why, when you see a guy like that, why is he viewed as like a 4th or 5th round pick, and some of those other guys are viewed higher? I'm not a scout. I don't know, but he ran kind of routes from everywhere. He can block. I mean, from the little that I saw of Ohio State games, I think he's going to be good. Yeah, I like him.
Then we also wanted to touch upon the wide receiver class. I mean, I'm sure you could talk about it at length. It's the position that seems the deepest and the most strong in this draft class. There could be as many as 8 wide receivers going off the board. How would you rank these wide receivers? And you can take this any way you want. You can give me us your top 5. If you want to keep going, that's great. But heading into without landing spots, how would you rank these wide receivers right now?
Yeah, and that's the first thing I'd say is so much of his landing spot dependent, but just based on their talent, what we saw in college, for me, I would have a top tier of 3. That would be Wilson and London and Burks. Those are for me the clear, like the ceiling is through the roof with all of those guys, right? If things fall right, if they have great landing spots, the actual talent. I think London has the most potential floor of those, even though a lot of people think it's Burks. I worry about London's separation and his long speed. But I think he showed enough. He can high point. He can beat guys out wide with his size. So I think those guys are safest. I'm still not settled on those order. I would say the tier 1B for me, like just below that, would be Olave and Jameson Williams. I think if those guys get the landing spot, they could jump up into the top tier for me. With those other 3, potentially even to the top. I mean, if Olave or Jameson Williams lands with the Packers, I think they're going to be maybe the top pick in a lot of dynasty leagues, just because Rodgers has nobody else to throw to right now, right? I mean, some people would say the Chiefs, but because of who Kelsey is, I mean, he's whoever they draft. If they draft someone's already going to be number 2, right? I think just below those 5 would be Sky Moore. I think he's kind of in a little tier of his own, which I know I'm higher on him than a lot of people, but I have him at 6 overall for the receivers. And then it would be like Pickens, Watson, Dotson. Those are the guys for me below those top 6, which I kind of lump them together. So much is going to depend on landing spot for all of those.
Who's the first one off the board? Scott Kobe wants to know.
Yeah, I think I would guess it's going to be London to the Falcons. That's my guess.
So he's plus 228 right now.
I was going to say, reopen betting corner. I think Garrett Wilson's the betting favorite, probably like minus 170, 175.
Minus 121.
121.
Who is he favored to go to? The Jets?
Hold on.
Atlanta?
Was not ready for that.
Is it Atlanta?
I'm allowed to put guests on the spot, but you're not allowed to put random side hosts.
Especially when he's in the dark at La Quinta.
Yeah.
That's right.
Dan,
I've heard painted into the betting corner.
Yeah.
I've heard him going to the Jets a lot. I just feel like the Jets are probably going to go defense at 6. So I just
probably so. And then 10.
Is it 4 or 6?
No, they've got 6 and 10.
6, yeah.
Yeah, and then
maybe
the Giants
we could
4 and 7.
Maybe we could all share our top wide receiver, or if you want to say, you can cop out and take a top 2 or 3. Dan, is there a wide receiver that you have as your top guy right now?
I'm pretty much. I'm going to cop out. I'm going to say 2. I'm going to go with Jameson Williams and Treylon Burks.
Dan,
how about you?
Yeah,
very different styles, but I love them both.
From what I hear, I like Jameson Williams to me would be and he's plus 182. I mean, he's got the second best odds right now on the website I'm looking at. So from what I've heard, is probably the one that's liked the most by the NFL right now. Even with the injury.
Andrew,
London. I love London. I can't. Yeah. That was obvious. Sorry, I thought you were going to do mine for me. I wasn't prepared to be called on. Yeah, no, I love Drake London. I love big wide receivers. I love breakout age. All the production with the Amon-Ra St. Brown and Pittman. It all goes together, and I got a type. There's a type that I love, and he's it.
So I've drafted London in startups. I like Burks a lot. I like Jameson Williams a lot. I think I'm going to have exposure to those guys. Dan and I just took Jameson Williams in a redraft league the other night. But right now, heading into the draft, my top wide receiver is Garrett Wilson. I think that he's super, super safe. Like, there's no scenario for me where I see Garrett Wilson busting. I think he's going to be a very, very good NFL player. He checks off a ton of boxes, and I'm hoping he has a great landing spot where he's featured. So I'm really, really excited about him. And now the next question is not so fun. We'll start out with Kevin. Which of these wide receivers do you think is the biggest potential bust?
In the whole class, you mean, right?
The day
top.
1 and day 2 guys.
Yeah. I think for me, I've heard a lot about Pickens being a potential bust because of off-field issues. It's impossible for us to know if those are real or not. So I probably wouldn't give as much credence to that. I think for me, one guy I just don't like is Dotson. Everybody loves him. I just think he's too small. And when I watch his tape, I'm just like, I don't know how that guy's going to, I know he's quick, but I just feel like how's he going to hold up? And he gets hit and, he's playing against really tough physical cornerbacks. I just wonder if he's going to be able to, some people say he's a smaller version of Keenan Allen. So maybe his route running is so good, he'll just get open and be successful. That's just the one I worry about.
Anybody else want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll throw out Christian Watson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not really a fan at all. I think he's getting boosted up on athleticism, and that always makes me nervous when a player just gets boosted pretty much solely on that. What he did in college was not that spectacular to me.
Christian Watson was mine as well. I like where Dan's head's at. And I also think that you look at age, he's going to be 23 when the season starts. So yeah, there's a lot of red flags on that for me. He's also very tall, but he's also kind of thin. It makes me think of guys like MVS and I'm not too thrilled about him. And I know it's a little bit of a cop-out because he's not going to be one of the top guys, but I don't see myself taking him too often with second-round rookie picks. And if he gets drafted by like the Chiefs or something like that, I might change my tune a little, but I still don't think I'd have too much of him.
He'd go too early for you to take him, right? I mean, if he goes to the Chiefs, it'll be top 6 or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Andrew, yeah. I know Andrew's answer on this one, but Andrew.
I said it's London. He's got. It's the fear of him failing. I want to have access to his ceiling, and I know that there's no floor, and I'm willing to have a N'Keal Harry 2.0 for me. I really am. I'm ready. Yeah. My body is fully ready for it, and I just don't care. I want Drake London. I know that there's no floor there, so I think it's the fear that excites me with that.
It's like the movie Heat, a classic movie.
Yeah,
the bank is worth the risk, Andrew.
Yeah,
the bank is worth the risk. You might get killed, but the score will be so good.
Top five movie for me.
Yeah,
for sure.
Fantastic. Who's your bust, JD?
Yeah, I mean, you guys touched. I think possible because we're just like Kevin said right off the bat. We're just guessing. I think Watson, like Dan said. I like Pickens. I like Pickens for whatever reason. The attitude could be the punch highlight. I don't know. It just I like that spiciness. But again, you guys know how I treat these receivers. I want them to prove themselves before I start investing. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. Do you guys think that if we go running back, do you guys think anyone goes ahead of Hall? Is there any chance of Walker going ahead or anything? I see Andrew. I see you kind of.
I liked it. If I can go first, reopen again. We're on the third corner of the betting corner, so another one, and we're done here. I looked it up because we did it with Waldman a little bit. It was, and the odds haven't changed so much. It's 70% for Reese to be the number one and 35% implied odds for Kenneth Walker. And we phrased it with Waldman like, hey, do we think that, Breece Hall is 2 times more likely to go number one, right? Obviously, you're going to get plus odds on Walker. And I think it's, as much as we are looking at all the measurables, there's, maybe somebody like, Tampa's maybe more interested in Kenneth Walker. So I think that there's outs to Kenneth Walker going ahead of Breece Hall in the real draft, but us still wouldn't that be like the CEH Jonathan Taylor situation from a couple years ago? So I think from a betting standpoint, if you're just looking at pure mathematical odds and probabilities, I think you got to kind of like your outs on having a Kenneth Walker ticket to be the first one. You're obviously not betting the mortgage on it, but I think that'll be a fun little bet just to see kind of how the NFL draft valuation falls versus our expectations.
And just Kevin, is there any other running backs you want to touch on? I know we've talked about Walker and Hall being in your top 7. Is there any other running backs that you're impressed with? Maybe your thoughts on Spiller as well.
Yeah, I like Spiller. I feel like if he had run, at the combine and gotten, numbers that were equivalent to the other two, he would be right up there with them. I think he's got good vision. He's got kind of a strange running style, like upright, but he's a good catcher of the ball. He's a good patient runner. He's got adequate speed. He kind of reminded me of Arian Foster when I watched him. Like he's just like a smooth, patient runner. So if he lands with a good offensive line with decent draft capital, I'll definitely be trying to get him with late first or early second dynasty picks. Other than that, I don't really. This class is just rough, man. I do like James Cook. Again, for what he is, just incredible speed and quickness. If he again lands in the right place, gets opportunity, he could be great. But yeah, it's a pretty thin class.
We've talked about the quarterback class for a while. 1912 asks, is anybody comfortable with Willis as the 1.2 in Superflex? For me, not really, unless there's some fantastic landing spot.
Well,
Kevin, who's your favorite quarterback and everybody else can answer that as well. I don't mean to interrupt on that. Is anybody have Willis as their 1.2 in Superflex, or are you kind of waiting to see the NFL draft?
Go, Kevin.
I do. Yeah, I do. I have Willis as 1.2. I'm not a big Superflex guy, but Willis is my top quarterback, mainly, because of his ridiculous running ability. If he gets drafted early enough, the draft capital is strong enough that they feel like they've got to start him within a year or two. He's going to be a ridiculous fantasy quarterback. And at that point, you just don't care how good he is at throwing the ball. You don't care if he's a good reader of the defense. I mean, think about Lamar Jackson. This guy, for the first couple of years, he could not read defenses. Think about the guy from, what's his name, Robert Griffin. Absolutely terrible reader of defenses. He always went to his first read or just ran. But who cares? I mean, he was the top fantasy quarterback that his rookie year. So yeah, I'd love Malik Willis if he's going to start.
I would like to see him in Pittsburgh. I think that would be that's the rumor right now that they're going to take him. I think that would be a great landing spot for him with the weapons there, and I think a capable coaching staff.
He did have
Dan
wings with
JD.
Tomlinson at the
What's that?
senior. Him and Tomlinson did have wings at the Senior Bowl, supposedly. So who knows?
Right. Yeah, I don't have a problem with Willis at 102 because here's the thing. I mean, I think at this time next year, you can get out of Willis for pretty much what you paid for him, almost no matter what happens. I mean, if he starts, even if he's, kind of really raw as a passer, his legs are going to give people enough hope that, you can still get out from under him. Even if he redshirts for the entire year, people are still going to be fired up about, oh man, when Willis gets a job, everything that we've been saying about him this year is just going to get dug up anew for next year. So I think he's a guy that you can basically have this year to take a free look, decide what you feel about him, and then either keep him on your roster or move on.
We didn't even see Trey Lance, and his ADP kept going this offseason.
Right.
So.
Yep.
So when I was on Kevin's podcast, we did our top 12 redraft rankings. A lot has changed since then. So I thought it would be fun if we all went around on NFL Draft Eve and shared our current top 12.
Oh shit! On the spot.
Pull up the ADP, man. Pull up the ADP.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to go to Fantasy Mojo. Can't leave
There
home
you
without
go.
it. And
I like how Kevin had it set up where we would say our number one, and then we just kind of move around. since we're already at an hour and a half in, I think we could maybe start with Kevin, and then we'll work counterclockwise. So Andrew does not have to be, number 2. So Kevin, who is your current number 1 player? And let's go by FFPC for this, guys, since we're all FFPC players.
Yeah.
So Kevin, who is your number 1? If a football guy's draft is tomorrow, who are you taking number 1 overall?
Yeah, same as it was on. I think we were together February 1st. It would still be JT for me.
It's JT for me as well. JD?
Yeah, it's JT, man. Don't let me bust out my JT t-shirt.
Yeah, JT.
Yes.
All right.
That was easy.
Consensus.
Good job, Andrew. You did it.
How about 2, Kevin?
My second is still Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I'm actually sticking with Cooper Kupp right there too. I think that's a great call. I'm on Cooper Kupp. JD?
I'm going with I think Dan and I are similar on this with Jefferson for me. You go back to, we talk about it often on the show. You look at guys that have made that top 12 at wide receiver, have a higher chance of repeating. Usually your guy who finishes wide receiver 1 is not going to finish wide receiver 1 again. I like Jefferson, just everything around him. I like that he's shown it at a very young age. So I put him slightly ahead of Kupp. For me, Jefferson's my wide receiver 1.
Dan?
Yeah, Jefferson is definitely my number 2 overall.
Chase.
Okay, so Andrew's on Chase's number.
But I
number
think
2.
I think that seems like we all agree that it's wide receiver next after JT. We're not at another running back yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Kevin, who are you at for number 3?
Yeah, no, my third is the same as it was before. It's Travis Kelce. In tight end premium format, I just I got to have him next. And just for reference, Jefferson is my 4, so I have Kelce then Jefferson.
My number 3 is Jefferson, and Dan and I actually did a 350 the other night, and we took Jefferson. So I put my money where my mouth is on that. I agree with you, JD. You could easily put him second. I think that, and I agree with Andrew on his Chase call. I think it's a real tier for me, but it would go JT, Kupp, Jefferson for me. JD, who's your number 3?
I like those 3 receivers for me. Like, it's Jefferson, Chase, and Kupp. I want to go through. I want to go JT and then those 3 before I consider McCaffrey or whoever else I'm looking at.
So would you have Kupp or Chase next?
Probably Chase, just being ageist and kind of nitpicking because they are so close, and because Kupp just finished. Now you got Allen Robinson there. I mean, you've got that the stack that Kevin was kind of talking about with Chase and Burrow, and you think, man, that's going to be there forever. It's kind of hard to not like him as the wide receiver too.
Dan, how about you for your number 3?
Kupp, number 3.
Easy one right there. Andrew, how about you?
Jefferson. And just to agree with where I think JD was going with this. I don't know if this helps the order, but I would go JT, then all 3 wide receivers before I consider the Kelce or another running back.
Yep.
And I think that's completely defensible. I mean, so I have JT, Kupp, and Kelce, but then I have Jefferson, Chase. So that's my top 5. The only reason I went Kelce at 3 is, probably partly because I'm a Chiefs fan and I'm a homer, but also partly I just think the gap, even though people are talking about these other guys coming up, and just like they used to talk about Kittle being better than Kelce, and whatever, those guys can be better all they want, but Kelce is the number 1 option with Mahomes, and that's going to be the case again this year, especially with Hill gone. So,
Hill.
And my number 4 is Chase. I think it's the 3 wide receivers have so much value right now. There's no question marks as to their role or their ability. There's no new team type deal. So I think that, there's a lot of wide receivers I'll like, but I think those 3 guys just have a certain level of safety. And JD, you answered this before. You're on those 3 wide receivers for 4. How about you, Dan? Who are you at for 4th overall?
I'm going to roll the dice with Christian McCaffrey. So you guys are not going to like where I have Chase. So I've already,
all right.
I've already steeled myself for that. So
Andrew, you've already said Cooper Kupp
Yeah,
would be
give me
your
Kupp
number
4.
four.
Yep.
Okay, and then Kevin, you already said your number 5.
Chase
would
is
be-
5. And the reason Dan, I understand where he's at, because the reason I have him below the others is because T. Higgins is there, and I think it's yes, talent wise he's better than Jefferson in my opinion. I agree with Andrew, but I just think he's going to get less targets.
And my 5 would be CMC. I was a little less into him, but we all saw the picture on social media of him in the sports bra type outfit running sprints, and he certainly looks healthy and ready to rock. So I'm back on the CMC train. I think there's some he is old, a little older, not too old, but he
looked like it was like loose skin, man. What was that all about?
The face looked a little old. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Spending too much time with Braxton Berrios and their girlfriends, man. That's what's happening.
Man. Gaunt faces are no good.
Late night. Grunt faces, yeah, for sure. The grunt adds years on your face. Everybody knows
Gaunt.
that.
I threw an SAT word out there. I don't even know if I used it correctly.
Yeah,
we'll move on.
That's about right. Yeah.
Number
so
5.
JD, who's your number 5?
Yeah.
Kelsey for me.
Okay, I'm going Austin Eckler, number 5.
I'm going CMC here.
Kevin, how about number 6?
Then my 6 is CMC.
Yep, I'm with Kevin.
And then my 6 is Eckler. How about you, JD? Where you at for 6?
7. Oh, I'm with Kevin.
I have Kelsey at 6. I have him below CMC and Eckler just because I do feel like Kelsey did start to fall off a little bit last year. And with the offense changing, I mean, I'm not convinced it's going to help Kelsey out. I'm not convinced it's going to hurt him, but I'm not convinced it's going to help him.
And I still do not have Kelsey coming off the board. I got Eckler next.
Okay.
And you guys aren't going to like where I have Eckler. My 7th is Henry. I know. So again, in Dynasty, it will be different. I feel like for this year, it's always hard for me to go away from Henry and redraft. So I would take him there.
And then my 7th is Kelsey. I think that he's super, super safe, and he's going to see a ton of targets. And I think the Chiefs' offense could be improved. I'm not one of these people who thinks they're going to take a massive step back. I think they might figure it out this offseason. How about you, JD?
Yeah, this is where I'm a hypocrite. Like I think Henry and Harris are kind of the 2 next options, but I just skip Henry every time. I don't know, man. I'm such an ageist when it comes to running backs. It's really hard for me to take these older guys. That's kind of why the receivers are from 2 to 4. Why Kelsey's at 5. So yes, Henry has that upside, but man, it's like holding the hot potato. And I talk about my best ball team last year where I took Henry first and I still ended up winning the league. But how often is that going to happen? So receiver, I'll probably go Harris or Javonte. And Dan and I have had this Javonte conversation. I think Javonte in a redraft, if you take him too early, could be a huge mistake because you're literally buying him at his complete ceiling, in my opinion.
Dan?
Number 7 is where you will find Jamar Chase for me. Dan
made it sound like you had him at like 20.
Yeah.
We're not so upset about 7.
I got Kelsey 7. So I think living on the edge. I think if I've done my math correctly, I think through 7 in some order that they're all the same for Dan, Andrew, that's me, and Theo. I think Kevin and JD, you've got one. I think you've got one different because I think you've got a Najee in the top 7. And Kevin, try to keep straight in my head. But who do you have in there that we don't have?
Derrick Henry is 7.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
JD,
yeah, very
I'm not
similar.
Sure if you caught since you have been very, very busy with work, but Melvin Gordon re-signed with the Broncos.
Oh, did he really? See, I had no idea. I've been work's kicking my ass, but damn, that's good. That's good to know because I do not have a lot invested in Javonte Williams. That's for sure. Way more in Melvin Gordon. So
there you go.
Yeah,
right.
8 for me is is Eckler. So yeah, it wasn't too far down, but yeah, I had him lower in our original list. He was 9. He jumped up to 8 because I had Tyreek up there in the February 1st list.
Well, actually, yeah, I missed Eckler. Sorry, guys. I'll put Eckler ahead of Harris.
There you go.
Nice.
Okay,
So
Theo,
so eight for me is actually going to be Devontae Adams. I'm kind of buying into him absolutely smashing in Las Vegas, and I think that he's in a great. To me, it's like I have one more wide receiver after him in the first round, and I want to have exposure to those guys. So I'm going to have him ahead of a couple of running backs as my number 8.
I like that. Dan and I went Adams early in a 125. I think he is falling too far, in my opinion. Like when he starts going into the second, bleeding into the second, sometimes farther. I think Adams for sure, and Diggs. I think Adams and Diggs are 2 guys for me, especially Diggs. I feel like Diggs is just undervalued, man. I almost want them to take a receiver, earlier, just so that I can buy some more Diggs, because I don't know, man. People just don't give that kid credit. You look at his air yards last year, and yeah, maybe down year fantasy wise and all that, but I mean that offense is on the upside, and he's definitely a centerpiece there.
And so your 8 was you want to revise? No, it's not Javonte. Are you pivoting?
Yeah, I'll probably pivot. I'd probably go Diggs and then Adams, or vice versa.
Okay.
I consider them very similar.
Dan, how about you for 8?
number 8, I'm again rolling the dice with Derrick Henry, just because if he does stay healthy, I mean that his rushing upside is massive, and Tennessee will just pound and pound and pound away with him.
I'm making a point here with where I have the running backs. I'm going Mark Andrews 8 after Kelsey 7.
There you go. That's big time.
Yeah.
Number 9.
Kevin, how about you for number 9?
9 is Najee Harris for me.
Najee's also number 9 for me.
JD?
Yeah, I'm kind of like going off top. Like I'm not looking at an exact ranking. I'm going off looking at the names. So if I haven't put Harris in, it'd be Harris. Andrew would definitely be the next guy I put in there. Andrews. And then guys I'd consider, especially tight end preems, maybe Kyle Pitts. When you start looking at the tight end position, but I think maybe Joe Mixon is a name you can throw in there.
Okay, I have Najee at 9 also.
So still making my point. Kyle Pitts 9.
There you go.
So I basically gone one running back, 3 wide receivers, couple running backs, and then this is the tight end run for me.
It's tough to invest in those running backs early, right, Andrew? Is that?
Oh, this is what I'm doing. This is the point. I'm making a point.
Yeah, and I thought I was going to be the earliest on Andrews. I have Andrews at 10, so you beat me to it.
All right. So Kevin's got Andrews at 10. Theo, who you got at 10?
I actually have Joe Mixon at 10. I'm getting bullish on him, and I think that the Bengals offense is going to be great, and I think that he's set to possibly have a career year. I'm into Mixon this year.
Okay, JD. We've kind of gotten 10 from JD, I think.
Yeah, JD's at like.
We're working on the second round, JD.
No, man. Hey, I said I'm giving 2 guys every time. I said Adams and Diggs, and then this time I said Andrews or Mixon. That's
all right.
So, Dan?
Right, sounds good. For me, there's a giant teardrop after 9. Devontae Adams is my 10. I'm a little bit reluctant on him just because he is changing teams, and that has historically been a problem for a lot of wide receivers. Give him a little plus for having worked with Carr before, though. So, but I'll take Adams at 10. Andrew,
I'll go Najee, and I'll redeem myself for the Khalil Herbert and Kenny Gainwell disaster of 2022. If the Steelers want to take away from their workhorse because everyone behind him, NFL stinks. Got in a debate about the word stinks when it comes to some of these athletes. Nevertheless, right, if the Steelers grab a 3rd or a 4th round running back, could eat into the Najee volume, but this is totally a Najee play for me. I'll take him at 10. I still do not have Derrick Henry off the board.
Yeah, my 11 was Devontae Adams. Again, I thought I might be highest on him based on ADP, so it's interesting. A couple of you guys already had him.
And then my 11 would be Stephon Diggs. It's very close for me with Adams, and I agree with JD, and I think that Diggs is in a great spot. He's my 11.
All right, JD.
Just looking at guys we haven't talked about, this is probably where I'm hitting. I mean, we don't know where he landed yet, but yeah, like the Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown.
Oh, God. JD, go Breece Hall. You were about to say Breece Hall is on the tip of your tongue.
Sorry?
Was Breece Hall on the tip of your tongue and you backed out?
No, not at all. No, I'm going receiver here. I'm either looking at AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel. Yeah, those are the two next guys for me.
All right, I got Mark Andrews at 11. But again, once you hit pick 10, this becomes a very broad tier, and I don't have a lot of confidence in putting any one of these over the other. So you can, basically this whole second tier after pick 9, you can take any of my guys, you can shake them up in a bag and pull them out, and I'm probably going to agree with it. So,
yeah. I'll be fun and the first to say the name DeAndre Swift. I like him right after Najee. I think he's still got the receiving upside. So again, I'm probably just going to get trucked by the big dog this year, but I still do not have Derrick Henry. I would still take Najee and Swift over him, and I just don't think I'm going to have much Derrick Henry unless Theo and I is co-owned Millie Billy teams. He convinces me it's big dog time. So Swift at 11 for me.
Yeah, I love Swift. I just couldn't bring myself to put him up this high, but I think it's a good pick. For me, Dan, the tier breaks after 11. Like you were saying, 9. For me, I have Andrews and Devontae Adams right up there with the group. And then I was like, who on earth do I put at 12? The only guy last time we talked about that I had in there besides Tyreek was Mixon. And for me, I'm kind of going the opposite direction on Mixon, Theo. I just feel like I don't trust that he's, the offense is going to kind of run through him. But I hope you're right because I have some of him in Dynasty. My 12 would be, I can't even say it, Dalvin Cook. I just feel like I had him down at like 19 before. And the farther we go in the offseason, I'm just feeling like they love this guy. They can't stop talking about how much they love him. So
I have Dalvin at 19 also, Kevin.
Do you?
Yes.
Yeah, I just couldn't decide on the 12th. It's just like I don't want any of these guys here.
12 is super hard for me as well. I am going with Derrick Henry, but I think that as the summer moves along, I think Andrew's got a great point about DeAndre Swift, and I think that Mark Andrews could end up creeping in there just based on positional scarcity. But for me, it's Derrick Henry. If you tell me that he's healthy heading into the season, it's going to be hard for me not to take him at the turn. JD, you've already said kind of AJ Brown is your 12, so we can keep or Mark Andrews. So we keep going. Dan, who's your 12?
I'll go with Diggs at 12. I have very little faith, but like I say, these guys are all in a tier. So, I'm sure he'll do good, but there's about 10 guys in this tier for me.
Yeah, I'll allow myself 3 names for this 12th pick. I think if I have it, I think I'm double tapping Adams and Diggs because neither of them are off the board for me. But of the running backs I didn't mention, I've always been high on Mixon. I still think he's got elite receiving ability and potential for the volume. So after you get through the JT, CMC, and Eckler, again, receiving ability, I'm only saying that there's 3 other potential first-round running backs of the Najee, Swift, and Mixon. I think I'm totally skipping that. And as I look back at the ADP, which is actually a helpful guidance, I'm skipping Henry. I'm skipping Dalvin. Javonte, I think, was knocking at the door. He probably has got some room here in the 12 through 15 range. But it really got the Najee, Swift, and Mixon. I don't think I'm touching a running back here. So.
It's a lot of fun to do this time of year, and I'm sure if we do this in 6 weeks, it's going to be
No, I can't wait to
a
change
lot
my
of
mind.
differences. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, this was fun to do. I'm a tier guy, man. To me, guys that are similar value, to put one in front of the other, give me tiers, man. Come on, I'll throw you 2 or 3 names every time, Theo.
There you go.
All right.
Well, I
Hey,
think
let me give let's give a quick, before we kind of roll this thing out, back it out of the garage. Let's give some quick love to our boys over at Underdog. Guys, if you're not an Underdog right now, I say it often. You've got FFPC, you've got Underdog, you've got a fun-filled offseason drafting, best ball, redraft. You can draft literally any sport on Underdog. You can do prop bets on there. NHL, MLB, NBA playoffs right now are going on. You can get into some big tournaments. You can draft some best ball tournaments for football, some drafts for this season. For all of next season, you've got the sophomores and rookies tournament. There's so much going on right now on Underdog. Guys, go check it out. Use the code DISTRICT, and they'll match up to $100 on your initial deposit. Sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, totally fine. So, and also shout out to the chat tonight, which was definitely lit. We really, really appreciate you guys. Lots of good chatter. Some nice little slams here. JD on his 12th round picks he likes already. You guys need to catch up. Love it. Oh yeah, 1912 is just keeping going. He wants Andrew to hit the La Quinta Jacuzzi.
Where's my air horn? Where's
Oh man.
Andrew at breakfast tomorrow at the La Quinta. Do you go for the cereal, or do you fill the little waffle thing?
Oh, you got to do the waffle maker. You got to do the waffle maker. Easy. That's the easiest question of the night.
Love it.
Eggs and bacon.
No,
if they don't have the hot eggs and bacon, I'll find a different hotel.
You don't visit the omelet guy?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're the place that has the
omelet
omelet guy, then I'm all in on that. If you're at Embassy Suites or whatever, definitely gotta have the omelet.
Unless you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, you're just getting that muffin in a plastic.
Yeah. Or you can get the heat and eat omelets at is it like Comfort Inn or whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, all right. Yeah, hotel breakfast. They're the best.
Kevin,
so
we
let's
appreciate
get out of here
2
like
hours.
this.
2 hours, man.
Yes,
I appreciate Kevin's 2 hours. It's awesome.
yeah. So we'll let Kevin go first. Give another plug for anything that you want to let people know where you can find you, and then the rest of us will sign off, and we'll let JD close the thing out.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, you can follow me on Twitter, Kevin Scott FF. You can follow the podcast. Download it wherever you get your podcast, just called Grinding the Data, and check out that expert series. It'd be awesome. That's about it. Yeah.
All right, Theo.
This was awesome. Dan and I will be back with NFFC player Mike Sanda on Friday. We'll do. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the first round, but we're getting together and talking about the draft that we just competed against each other in, the opening RotoWire online championship of the season. Dan and I put together a team we like, and we're going to get a chance to talk about it with Mike.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's so Friday night, guys. Not only you have the
No,
draft.
it's actually going to be Friday. It'll be Friday 1 p.m. So
Well,
you got a little midday.
Afternoon delight from Theo and Dan.
I like that. There you go. A little taste in between the rounds of the NFL draft, so you guys can get some actual draft action going on with the high stakes studs over here. Theo and Dan teaming up. Andrew, you're hanging out. You've got one bulb way brighter than the other. What's going on at La Quinta tonight? Are you heading down to the lobby at all? What's on the menu?
No, this lights off. Maybe a little dessert room service. Maybe some Revolver Blood and Honey for those of you who are Dallas people. The Blood and Honey is an unbelievable staple of. It's like not their like natty light, but they're just like classic go-to like light lager. Huge Blood and Honey guy. Normally, I'm an IPA guy. I was just checking my FFPC wonderful sponsor, and I've already forgotten. It's creeping up on me. The Revelations Draft.
It's coming up May. Yeah.
Of which the four of us are competing against each other like big idiots. I don't know why we decided to do that, but
May 6th.
May 6th, that'll be fun. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour from the FFPC guys are going to be streaming it. Likely, we do a recap of that. And I just gave away my made up on the spot, looking at Fantasy Mojo and flipping some players around rankings. So hopefully, I got to change those already by May 6th. But that'll be fun, and it'll be a great review podcast, and that's what I got coming up next. Dan, we got to finish up our triflex. We're going to kill our picks as I know we will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to have a special guest drafter for the Revelations League because I will be out in DC watching my daughter graduate. So
nice.
Yeah. So I've got, a guy who might be a little bit of a ringer lined up to help me out. So we'll see how it goes. But definitely looking forward to the draft this weekend. And let's get after those rookie drafts right after that.
Yeah, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed tonight. We've got a lot. We've got a serious roster coming up post draft. I'm not even going to let Theo tease you guys. Stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, like, all that goodness. Check out Viridian Global for all your GOAT gear. You see Dan and I rocking a bit. All your hoodies, t-shirts, toques, anything you need fantasy-wise, especially with the district. Underdog, like I said, guys, if you're signing up, use the code DISTRICT to get up to $100 match. And myffpc.com, where all the goodness happens. Big tournaments, big money. Tag one of us for a sign-up bonus. Hope you guys enjoy the draft. Don't be on Twitter the whole time and miss the whole thing. Just enjoy it, guys. Sit back, grab some popcorn, enjoy the draft. We'll check you all later.
Go district, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Good times tonight, fellas. That was fun.
That's fun. Yeah, it's fun. Thanks for hanging with us for 2+, Kev.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I didn't even realize where the time was going on.
I didn't either.
Like,
I had no idea.
We're at 2 hours.
Yeah.
We're just stimulating.
Right.
That was a lot of fun though tonight. We covered a lot of good stuff. That was
good.
Really good.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I'd love to have you back.
All right. Cool.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a good night, man.
Take it
You
easy,
too.
Kevin.
Enjoy the
Have a
draft.
great
Don't forget to hit no live. Off air.
What's that?
Off air, baby.
No, we don't want to go off air yet. I mean,
You guys laugh. I had that. I told you guys I was hosting like a webinar as a bunch of healthcare professionals education thing. Anyways, so we're supposed to record these things, and it's like 50 minutes in, and my buddy texts me. He's like, "Dude, aren't you supposed to be recording this?" I'm like, oops. All right, we'll press the record now.
Gosh.
Good thing.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's all classic JD, man.
All right. We'll see you
Have
guys.
a good night, Kev.
Yep.
All right, take care, guys.
Yep. Later on.
That was fun, guys. I like when the four of us are on. I just find opens it up a bit.
So I was actually going to throw it out to you guys because I talked to Dan about doing a rookie draft preview show. I actually cannot end of next week But if you guys have the time, I think it would be a great show. Like we have Billy on Monday.
I love that we're still live.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that's right.
Oh, Jamie, take it off.